Now, welcome to our today's science lesson, and today we are going to discuss about invertebrates. And when you remember, during our last topic we talked about classification of animals, and we said animals are classified as either vertebrates or invertebrates. So during our last time we talked about vertebrates, and we all discussed the characteristics of all vertebrates, where we said we have vertebrates. Examples are mammals, we said reptiles, amphibians, and also we talked about birds. And we talked about those that are warm-blooded and also those that are cold-blooded, where we said about examples of warm-blooded animals, where we said we have mammals and birds. Examples of cold-blooded, we say they are reptiles, fish, we have amphibians, and we talked about all the characteristics of those vertebrates. Now today we are going to discuss about invertebrates, where during our last time I mentioned examples of invertebrates, and I say they are grouped as either insects, they can be either be grouped as arachnids, mollusks, crustacea, worms, or also myriapods. Now today we are going to discuss each characteristics of each group. Now we are going to start with the insects. Now when you talk about insects, most of you understand an insect. Now the characteristics of insects, for example, when you talk about a bee as an insect, we say number one, it has 3 pairs of legs. When you talk about 3 pairs of legs, this means it has 3 times 2, which will give you 6 legs. So if you talk about 3 pairs of legs, it means it is 2, 2, 2 in each pair, hence 6 totaling to 6 legs as insects. Now all insects have 6 legs. Number 2, we talk about 3 body parts. These body parts, they are either divided. Number 1, it has a head, it has a thorax, and also it has an abdomen. Now when we are going to discuss, this is the head, it has a head. Then number 2, it has what we call the thorax, and number 3, it has what we call an abdomen. So those are the 3 body parts. It has a head, thorax, and an abdomen. Those are the 3 body parts. Number 3, we are going to talk about the breathing. Where do they breathe? Now they take their breathing through the spiracles. Now what are these spiracles? Spiracles, these are small holes that are found on the abdomen. Now when you look at an insect, for example a bee, and you look at its abdomen, you will get that it has smaller holes. Those small holes are called what we call the spiracles. They are called the spiracles. So these spiracles are the one that helps for gaseous exchange in all insects. Now number 4, we are going to discuss about they have compound eyes and a pair of antennae. When you talk about compound eyes, we have those that have simple eyes and also those that have compound eyes. Now when you talk about insect, we say they have compound eyes. And also when you talk about having a pair of antennae, this means it has 2 antennas. So it has the first one and the second one. Those are the pair of antenna. You may be asked about what is the function of an antenna to insects or to any either to insects. For example, if somebody asks you to give an function of antenna to these insects, this antenna is used to sensitivity. Now this one, it senses either enemy, or it can be used to test the presence of food. So it's say number 1 for sensitivity either of an enemy, or it can be used to test or to sense the presence of food. Now the next thing, examples of these insects, we have butterfly, we have housefly, we have the bees, flea, mosquito, grasshopper, we have weevils and cockroaches, and many other examples of insects. Now these are all the characteristics of insects. Now we move to another animals. These are the arachnids. We are going to talk about the characteristics of arachnids. Number 1, the arachnids, they have 4 pairs of legs. When you say they have 4 pairs of legs, it means it is 4 times 2, which means they have 8 legs. They have a total of 8 legs. Now number 2, characteristic number 2, we say they have 2 body parts. Therefore they have the head and the abdomen. So they have the head and the abdomen. So that is the 2 body parts. Number 3, we talk about they have no wings. Now when you talk about insects, they have wings. This is the wing, this part and this part, they have wings. But when we come to arachnids, we say they lack wings or they do not have wings. Number 4, we say they have no antenna. They are different from insects, where insects we say they have antenna. So these ones, they lack antenna. Number 5, we talk about they breathe through the lung book. Example, we have tick, we have spider, we have scorpion and mites. Now when you talk about breathing through a lung book, this is an example of a lung, but now it has it looks like it has like pages, so the name lung book. When you look at the lungs of these aragonines, they appear like they have like paper, so the name lung book. Now we move to another group where we are going to discuss mollusks. When you talk about mollusks, the examples of mollusks are the slug, we have the scorpions, or the octopus, sorry, we have the snail, we have the slug, the oyster, and the squid. Now, what are the characteristics of these snail, slugs, and the squid? Number 1, we say they have soft body. When you take a snail and touch it, it has a very soft body. Then number 2, we say they do not have segments, or they are not segmented. When you talk about segment, a segment, when you look, for example, when we come to discuss about the myriapods, we'll get that they have segments. A segment, this is just breakdowns that are on the bodies of an animal. So, for example, in centipedes and millipedes, they have segments. So these are what we call the segments. When we say an animal is not segmented, it means it lacks those steps, or the steps that are on the body. Number 3, we say some have shells, but others do not have. We say some because, for example, when you talk of a snail doesn't. A snail has a shell. Then when it grows, it comes out of the shell. Then it starts growing to an older snail. But others do not have a shell. That is all about the mollusks. We move to myriapods. Now, when you talk about myriapods, when you move to second level, we talk about the diplopods, the diplodocus, and the chilopods. We have the chilopods and the diplopods. When you talk about the chilopods, these ones are the centipedes, while when you talk about the diplopods are the millipedes. But here in primary level, we only talk we group them generally as myriapods. Now, what are the characteristics of these myriapods? The first characteristics, they have so many legs. When you look at this as an example, maybe this is let me use it as a centipede, then in every segment, it has 2 pairs of legs. In every segment, it has 2 pairs of legs. Meaning, in one pair, it has 4 legs. So, when you move to this, when you look at these centipedes, it's somehow very long. So, if each segment is 4 legs, and assuming it has, for example, 10 segments. If it has 10 segments, and in each we have 4 legs, that totals to 40 legs. So that's why we say it has so many legs. Number 2, we say it have segmented bodies. I've already described that. Then we talk about the breathing. They also breathe through the spiracles, just like insects. So they have spiracles on their bodies, which helps in gaseous exchange. Number 4, we say they have no pair of antenna. They have no pair of antenna. Then example, we have centipedes, we have millipedes as an example of these myriapods. We move to a 5th example of invertebrates. We talk about the crustacea. Now, when you get to some books, they just give you an examples, but they don't give you the general name that is given to this group of the crabs, the lobster, the crayfish, and the prawn. Now, the general name that is given to this group is what we call the crustacea. We have the specific characteristics of this group. Number 1, we say they have, for example, a hard outer body. When you say it has a hard outer body, this means it has an external skeleton. Now, when you talk about types of skeleton, we have what we call an internal skeleton, we have internal skeleton, and we have external skeleton. Now, when you talk of internal skeleton, for example, we as human beings, we have an internal skeleton where we have the flesh outside, but now inside we have the bones that make up a skeleton. But now, when we move to these crustaceans, they have an outer skeleton. That means they have a very hard outer body. Number 2, we talk about they live in water. When you talk about the crabs live in water, that's their habitat. Then number 3, we talk about 2 pairs of antenna. I talked about the importance of an antenna to those animals. There where we said they sensitivity, they sense either food or either they are used for sensitivity of an enemy. Then that's number 4, they have 5 pairs of legs. 5 pairs of legs, this totals to 5 times 2, which will give us they have 10 legs, as their legs have the total of 10 legs. That's all about the characteristics of crustacea. The examples are crabs, we have lobster, we have the crayfish, the wood lice, and also the prawn. So you must understand the general name that is given to this group, which is called the crustacea. You may be asked to give examples of crustacea. You must be keen on that. The last bit of today, that is the last group of invertebrates, we are going to talk about worms, and all of you understand about worms. Now, these worms are grouped in different ways according to their characteristics. Now, we can group these worms, one, as those that have segments, we have those that lack segments, and we have those that are parasitic. So, if we look at them as a segmented, which are these worms that are segmented? Number 1, we have this what we call the lungworm, and we have the leeches. The leeches, they have segments, meaning they are segmented. Number 2, we have those that have no segments, or they are unsegmented. Examples, we have the hookworm, we have the roundworm. Those are the examples of those worms that are unsegmented, meaning they lack segments. Then number 3, we talk about this group here, which is now parasitic. Now, I would like to also underline this parasitic, because in most cases you may be asked to give what is a parasite. When you talk about parasitic, it means it feeds to a certain animal, but that animal does not gain from it. For example, we talk of a tapeworm and a liver fluke. These ones, they only depend on the other animal, but the other animals does not gain from them directly, but they either drink the blood of that animal, or they feed on they get food and also habitat from that animal, but they doesn't have any importance to that animal. That means they are parasitic. Now, what are these examples of these the general worms? We have the lungworm, we have the leech, you have the hookworm, the roundworm, the liver fluke, and the tapeworm. Now, if I underline this tapeworm, why do we give this worm as a tapeworm? When you look at this worm here, it has some tapes. It has some tapes that is our specific sizes. Now, these are what we call the tapes. These tapes give this worm a name, tapeworm. Then we have also this one that is called earthworm. The difference between tapeworm and earthworm, when you look at this earthworm, it has a certain part here which looks, it doesn't have any segment. Now, if this one, it lacks any segment, this part, it identifies this worm as an earthworm. Now, this is all about today's discussion, and this is all about the discussion of invertebrates, and also this brings us to an end of the classification of these animals and how. Now, the only thing that you have to do, you have to understand the characteristics of all vertebrates, the characteristics of all invertebrates, and also you must get to differentiate the characteristics of myriapods and the characteristics of either insects or worms. What differentiates molars and crustacea? What differentiates worms and the aragonines? That one will also help you when you have been given the characteristics of a certain group in an exam. You will be able to identify this characteristic does not belong to worms, but it belongs to myriapods. Now, also, you all have to get the differences between these characteristics of worms and those that we discussed the other day about vertebrates. Now, finally, you must get to understand this group of invertebrates. We say they do not have any backbones. Now, when you look throughout, the worms doesn't have any backbones, the molars doesn't have any backbones, and during the discussion we have not mentioned anything to do with a backbone. So this is all about today's discussion. Let's meet next time, inshallah, when we will be discussing about the feed, that is animal feeds, and also animal feeding. So thank you very much. Let's meet next time, inshallah.